Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. First and foremost, I would like to extend my appreciation to Dr. Muhammad Safirin bin Nordin for his guidance throughout this course, Philosophy and Future in TVET. My name is Nur Afika Fatiha Hamidun, and today I will be presenting my meta-analysis entitled Perceptions of the Future of Lifelong Learning in China's Tibet. And now we start with the introduction. The rapid advancement of technology has significantly transformed workforce requirements. As industries increasingly adopt AI, automation, and digital technologies, workers are required to continuously update their knowledge and skills to remain employable and productive. In response to these changes, China has actively promoted lifelong learning through policy reforms, digital learning initiatives, qualification frameworks, and stronger industry education collaborations. So, this study aims to examine perceptions and future directions of lifelong learning within China Tibet through a meta-analysis of existing literature. So, what is the TVET and lifelong learning? According to KPM, TVET is an education and training process that emphasizes practical skills, technical knowledge, and industry practices to produce skilled, competent, and employable workers who are prepared for the labor market. Meanwhile, lifelong learning refers to a continuous learning process that takes place throughout an individual's life for the purpose of improving knowledge, skill, competencies, and personal development. Lan mentioned that lifelong learning comprises all phases of learning from the preschool to post-retirement, including formal, non-formal, and informal learning experience. This study is underpinned by human capital theory, which suggests that investments in education, training, and skills development contribute to improved productivity, employability, and economic growth. So, the objective of this meta-analysis is to comprehensively analyze and synthesize existing studies on perceptions of the future of lifelong learning in the Tibet sector in China. Now, moving on to the methodology. The study adopts a meta-analysis approach involving 11 studies published between 2021 and 2026. The studies were selected based on their relevance to lifelong learning and TVET in China. Two analytical approaches were employed. First, thematic analysis was conducted to identify themes. The prominence of each theme was measured using frequency effect size, or FES, following Sandlowski and Barroso's approach. Second, quantitative findings from the studies were synthesized. So there are 5 thematic findings. First, digital transformation and digital competencies. Second, policies and institutional support. Third, industry alignment and workforce development. Fourth, flexible learning pathway and qualification systems. Fifth, development of 21st century competencies and lifelong learning culture. The first and most dominant themes is digital transformation and digital competencies with an FES of 72.73%. The literature consistently identifies digital transformation as a key driver of lifelong learning development. Smart campus visual simulation and digital learning platforms have expanded learning opportunities beyond traditional classrooms. However, an important insight from the literature is that digitalization should not be viewed merely as technological adoption. Its success depends on digital readiness, institutional support, and effective instructional design. Therefore, future reform should focus not only on technology infrastructure, but also on digital inclusion and innovative pedagogical practices. second theme, also with an FES of 72.73%, is policy and institutional support. The findings demonstrate that China's progress in lifelong learning has been strongly supported by government policies and institutional commitment. Initiatives such as Education Informatization 2.0, China Education Modernization 2035, and the revised vocational education law have strengthened the development of lifelong learning and TVET. However, policy implementation alone is insufficient. Continuous evaluation is necessary to ensure that this reform generate meaningful education outcome and employability benefits. The third theme focused on industry alignments and workforce development with an FES of 72.73%. The literature highlights the importance of aligning lifelong learning initiatives with labor market needs. Industry competency standards and close collaboration between educational institutions and employers help ensure the relevance of training programs. This theme is particularly important because technological change is expected to both eliminate and create jobs. As a result, lifelong learning plays a crucial role in supporting workforce adaptability through continuous upskilling and reskilling. From a human capital theory perspective, lifelong learning serves as a strategic investment in workforce development and economic competitiveness. The fourth theme is flexible learning pathways and qualification system with an FES of 54.55%. The findings indicate that qualification frameworks, credit transfer system, and micro-credentials are increasingly supporting lifelong learning participation. For example, Guangdong's digital credit bank system facilitated more than 2.25 million credit recognition and conversion cases. The initiative reduced barriers to learning and provide greater flexibility for learners. Nevertheless, qualification recognition system requires strong coordination among educational institutions, industry, and regulatory bodies to ensure credibility and quality. Therefore, future reforms should balance flexibility with quality assurance to create an integrated and credible lifelong learning ecosystem. The final theme concerns the development of 21st century competencies and a lifelong learning culture with an FUS of 54.55%. The literature suggests that future TVET systems must develop not only technical skills but also critical thinking, digital literacy, adaptability, and self-directed learning. Importantly, lifelong learning should be understood as a cultural transformation rather than simply an education strategy. Although policies and technologies provide structural support, the sustainability of lifelong learning ultimately depends on individuals' willingness and ability to engage in continuous learning throughout their life. The quantitative finding indicates substantial progress in the development of lifelong learning within China's TVET sector. For example, Guangdong province recorded approximately 1.39 million lifelong learning accounts and more than 2.25 million credit recognition and conversion cases, demonstrating the expansion of flexible learning pathways. At the national level, the Smart Education platform connected 519,000 schools and served 293 million students, reflecting large-scale digital transformations. In addition, the Open University of China provided learning sources to more than 65 million learners, while over 90% of students reported positive experience with visual simulation learnings. However, challenges remain, including dropout rates of 29 to 32% and continuing talent shortage in key industries. These findings suggest that although China has successfully expanded lifelong learning infrastructure and participation, future efforts should focus on improving learners' retention, education quality, and alignment between TVET outcomes and labor market demands. Despite significant progress, several challenges remain. This includes skill mismatch between TVET outcome and labor market needs, relatively high dropout rates, unequal access to digital resources, and the needs for continuous monitoring of lifelong learning initiatives. Therefore, future reforms should focus not only on expanding learning opportunities but also on improving quality, inclusiveness, and responsiveness to workforce demands. In conclusion, this meta-analysis demonstrates that lifelong learning has become a strategic component of China's TVET sector. Five key themes emerge from the analysis. First, digital transformation and digital competencies. Second, policy and institutional support. Third, industry alignment and workforce development. Fourth, flexible learning pathways and qualification systems. And the last one, development of 21st century competencies and lifelong learning culture. Despite significant progress, challenges such as skill mismatch, dropout rates, and digital inequalities continue to affect its effectiveness. However, the future success of lifelong learning depends on balancing accessibility, quality, and workforce relevance. The findings have several implications. First, strengthen collaboration between TVET institutions and industry. Second, integrate digital literacy, critical thinking, and lifelong learning competencies into TVET curricula. Third, ensure lifelong learning opportunities are accessible to diverse learner groups. Finally, future reforms should prioritize quality, inclusiveness, and sustainability to ensure that lifelong learning contributes to workforce resilience and long-term economic development. Now, moving on to the strengths and limitations of the meta-analysis. This meta-analysis provides a comprehensive synthesis of 11 studies and identifies dominant themes using frequency effect size analysis. However, the review included studies with diverse research designs and focused primarily on the Chinese context, which may limit generalizability. So, future studies could incorporate more empirical research and cross-country comparison to provide a broader understanding of lifelong learning development in TVET.